Hi everyone, welcome to this fortnightly Tools for Frontline Staff session. We've got three presentations today. We've got John and Sarah from the Employment and Skills service at Hackney Council, and Molly has come along from Groundwork to talk about some corporate volunteering opportunities. So I'm going to pass over to John. Please take it away.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's well today. So I'm actually standing in from a colleague today, so please forgive me if I'm not as well versed in some of this stuff as well as her. But as John's mentioned, I'm actually part of the Employment Skills and Adult Learning service, and part of that service includes an offer that we have to residents, which is our Hackney Work service. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that today, and just just wanted to talk about that. So I see Helen's got a hand up. Helen, is that already? Have I said something wrong already? No?
That was an accident, sorry.
No worries. I was getting scared, Helen. But we're all friends here, so so no worries. Okay, so yeah, so I wanted to talk about our Hackney Work service. It's actually a service that we offer to residents. So it's a free employment service, and what it does is dedicated to helping residents succeed in the job market. And essentially what we do, or what my colleagues in Hackney Works do, is that they offer tailored kind of advice and support to connect residents with local jobs. For residents that want to get jobs or want to stay in employment, or maybe even if they want to go into training or apprenticeships or anything like that. So what the Hackney Works will do is that they'll provide specialized kind of pathways or programs to kind of help residents navigate that and get that additional support in to get into work as well and progress in their careers. So essentially, in a nutshell, what Hackney Works does is help our local residents kind of secure stable work. A lot of the times as well with some of our residents, it's residents that maybe in employment already, but they're underemployed. And so my colleagues within the Hackney Works service will support them to get stable work and long-term work as well. And as you can see on the screen, these are some of the barriers to work that the team kind of supports residents with. So although we, the kind of top line message is supporting residents into work, but a lot of the times there are additional barriers that kind of stop that. And so the Hackney Work advisors will support people with their benefits, because they'll find that a lot of not a lot, but some residents have debts. They have trouble navigating the landscape of the benefits and how to claim different things. So the advisors will support them with their applications, things like that. We have residents, obviously, that have physical disabilities or disabilities in general. And so finding a job can be difficult for them, especially finding even disability confident employers and things like that. Support them with housing, childcare, health, mental health, which is a big area that we find a lot of residents have challenges with. And also, additionally, as I said, they'll support them with their skills and upskilling themselves. And they do that in tandem with our adult learning service. So adult learning provides a range of different courses for our local residents as well. But what the Hackney Works team does is that they actually signpost or create pathways for the residents into all these things that we have on offer. So Hackney Works is one area of the team, and I work in another area. So we're all under the umbrella of Employment Skills and Adult Learning. So you've got the Adult Learning, which is our adult education part. And then you've got Hackney Works, which is our advisory kind of supporting residents into work part. And then you've also got Employment Pathways, which is the side of the team that I kind of sit in. And one of the things we do is we try and support our residents as early as possible. So so before I go to that, here's a typical kind of journey for a resident here. So we've got a resident here, her name is Anna, and she participated in ESOL classes. She registered for Hackney Works, received CV support, and took part in mock interviews and application support and she was referred to SmartWorks and then finally employment. And essentially, since the Ukraine war, Hackney Works has been working to support residents from Ukraine. And so this resident, she worked as an administrator in Ukraine, and she felt that her barrier to work in this country was her English, and she felt that that was hindering her from finding work. And so what we were able to do, or what the Hackney Works team were able to do, was support her with ESOL classes through the adult learning, our adult learning colleagues. And her employment advisor at the time took her to Westfield Shopping Centre, and this led her to actually finding employment in retail. And she was supported with her CV, mock interviews, as it says there, and application support. And SmartWorks is a charity that we work with, and they actually provided clothes that she could actually wear to her interview, and she finally secured employment. So just a typical kind of well, there isn't a typical story, but one of the kind of many kind of stories that the Hackney Works teams regularly engage with our residents that have different barriers. And here we have this lady that was able to secure employment. So as I mentioned, I work on the employment pathways, and I mentioned that we also try to support residents as early as possible. So one of the ways we do that is for our school work experience. And the school work experience, the whole purpose of doing that is to provide meaningful kind of work experience opportunities for school-based students. And the reason to do that is that what we find when we've spoken to local residents is that young residents is that firstly, they don't even realize that, you know, the council that sends the people to collect their bins, or the council that is responsible for why their dad's car got ticketed for parking in the wrong spot, they don't realize the raft of employment opportunities that the council has to offer, or the fact that we're the second largest employer in the borough behind Homerton Hospital. So what the school work experience does is actually bring to life the many different roles that are available within the council, and actually put some color behind the council buildings that they see when they're walking to and from school. And so last year we were able to engage in 24 teams. So 24 teams engaged with the council in different ways. I think finally 14 teams, it was around 14 teams that actually hosted different work experience opportunities. We had 9 different schools, and we had about 68 students that engaged across May, June, and early part of July. And so school work experience is one of the pathways, one of the ways that we kind of open up, start that stepping stone of success for our local residents, so that they can get into the careers that they want to. And also it can also be an early pipeline for some of our departments, getting young people interested in the different roles within the council and exposing them to what are the possibilities of employment within the council. So we do that through the employment pathways, through the school work experience. On another note, aside from that, the areas that I kind of support with, so I'm the work placement manager, so I look after school work experience, but I also get regular inquiries about volunteering, mentoring, and I work in, just yesterday I was part of a meeting with our leaving care team, and so supporting our care leavers, our residents that have SEND, and also our integrated gangs unit as well. So supporting all those other parts of the department with work placements, with volunteering, with work experience. That's the kind of remit within my under my scope. And one of the kind of real kind of flagship pieces of work that we're proud of is our Hackney 100. So we have a program called Hackney 100. It was initially launched in 2017, and in a nutshell, it's a work placement program. And in 2017, we really focused on young people under the age of 24, so 16 to 24-year-olds. But it's kind of evolved. In 2020, just in lockdown, we had another kind of iteration of Hackney 100. So if you look to the furthest left box, the orange box, we have Hackney 100 Skills Plus. And this is a pathway into employment for residents who are not ready to start a job or an apprenticeship, and that's partly due to a skills gap and also experience gap. So a lot of the participants of this program haven't been in employment for quite a while. So what we do with this program is that we actually upskill the residents. This is aimed at residents over 25. It's part-time, so they do around about 14, 15 hours a week. It's paid, so it's paid at London living wage. So that's the commitment that the council's made. And when we engage with local employers who host some of these placements, we also ask them to honour that London living wage payment pay scale as well. And we offer kind of pastoral support as well as qualifications in English and maths. And so that program has just been launched. It's just been launched now, and I have a cohort of 14 participants, and they've already started their English and maths. Some of them already started their work placements, and they're placed within the council and also with local employers. So that's the furthest left box. In the middle box, we also have another iteration of Hackney 100, and it's more focused in its original format of focusing on young people. And it does say green and construction. So those are the industries that we're focusing on. But as we know, green opportunities or green jobs can be in any sector. So although it says green, some people think that it's only in environmental kind of jobs. No, it's not. It can be in any sector. But those are the areas that we're focusing on. Construction, because we have relationships with a lot of construction companies within the borough, and we want to leverage those relationships. But in this instance, if we look at that green box in the middle, it's aimed at 16 to 24-year-olds, and it's about between 2 to 4 weeks long. It's full-time, and again, it's paid work placement. And again, we offer pastoral support. A lot of the times, the young people will be coming from schools or just recently left university, or they'll be supported by other teams. So maybe part of the care leavers team, a leaving care team, so part of virtual schools. So they'll already have pastoral support within those programs that they're coming from. And so, but we still offer employability and pastoral support. And then the last box is essentially just kind of like our bespoke Hackney 100. So basically, we'll tailor this to the needs of the individual in resident. So very much tailored more to our residents that maybe have SEND, that are SEND or care leavers, or really have really high barriers into employment. And so we'll tailor the placement according to their needs, and they get a high level of pastoral support. So that's Hackney 100 in a nutshell. And I think with that in mind, I'm due to finish, but it would be remiss of me if I didn't also mention my colleagues in the employment pathways. So I have colleagues that also provide apprenticeships, that actually manage the apprenticeship team. And we all know the apprenticeship team is an award-winning internal apprenticeship team. So they have a high track record of completions and positive outcomes. So a lot of the apprentice within the council either go on to full-time employment outside of council, but many actually are retained within the council and secure permanent positions within the council. And we work with our schools and across our local employers to actually leverage the apprenticeship levy, so we can actually support local businesses so that they actually can take on more apprentice as well. And I think that is about it. So I think I'll hand over the floor for questions if there are any.
Thanks, John. Charlie, do you want to come in?
Hi, John. Thank you. It was a great presentation. I was just curious, I've got a couple of questions, but to start with, if I was a resident, like what would be the best way for me to access Hackney Works, or where can I find how to kind of be in touch with you?
Yeah, so good question. And as I said, so I don't work within Hackney Works, so I'm missing key bits of detail. But we do have resident hubs, so hubs within the community that residents can just walk in at any point. So we have a hub in Woodbury Downs, we have one in Hoxton, and Councillor Wins is a great answer, and she's more in touch with all the nuances. But yeah, and we also we had a hub in Gascoigne, but now those advisors are actually based within the Hackney Service Centre as well. So a resident can just walk into the Hackney Service Centre, and now if they mention Hackney Works, they'll be able to be pointed to an advisor. But equally as well, a resident can just go to our opportunities website and just register via the website. So if we have residents that can't access the hubs, they can do that online as well. And those are the simplest ways. Walk in or actually just go online through our website and you can access Hackney Works.
Thanks, John. Councillor Williams?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great, fabulous. Thank you, John. Both Johns, actually. John for putting this on the agenda, but also John for delivering the presentation. I am in the office, so there will be some talking in the background. Hopefully you can still hear me, though. I have, what I've done is pull together a few sign-up details, which I'll put in the chat, and John, I can send them over to you afterwards that you can include in your update newsletter as well. So there's a huge amount that's going on across Hackney, but also what we call a sub-regional partnership in terms of getting Hackney residents into employment. Really glad for the focus on the Hackney 100 Skills Plus programme. And so John, I don't know whether the form is still live, so I have included a link there, but if you just tell me whether it's still live. If it's not live, I won't include it. So there's, as John was saying, Hoxton Hub, Homerton, Gascoigne Hub. There's one at Woodbury Down as well. There is a fortnightly newsletter that is produced by our comms team. I'll include the link to sign up to that because, of course, residents who you work with may well want to get access and news about other opportunities, whether it's jobs that are coming up, apprenticeships that are coming up, traineeships, but also, training programs as well, and help with CV writing. So that information is sent out on a regular basis. We're also part of a sub-regional partnership called Leading Inclusive Futures in Technology. It doesn't exactly trip off the tongue. We call it LIFT for short. So there's a huge amount of work that's done across Islington, Camden, Hackney, Tower Hamlets, getting residents into jobs in the technology sector, particularly where they are often marginalised and don't have a huge number of opportunities to enter jobs there. And again, there's a lot of pastoral support. So I'm going to add the link to that newsletter as well for you to have a look at. Thank you both for putting it on the agenda, and John for giving the presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. That's really helpful. And I'll of course include all of that information in the newsletter. Does anyone else have any other questions for John? I had one or two, but Charlie?
Hi, John. You mentioned that you might not be the right person for this question, but maybe something we can get back to or connect with later. I just wondered about the outreach opportunities for Hackney Works. Like, I know someone goes to the Welcome Hub that's in the library every Thursday for refugees and migrants. We've recently run some coffee mornings, and I know members of Hackney Works attended that too. I just wondered what the scope was for kind of more continued outreach for the team, because there's lots of other, parts of the service to do outreach, and maybe there's an opportunity to align them. I'm thinking with like housing officers or with colleagues we do who do energy advice, just where we can get all advice happening in the same place at the same time. Just feels like a good opportunity.
Oh, okay, I understand. Yeah, so as you mentioned, we do, the Hackney Works team does a lot of outreach already, but it does make sense to kind of join that up a little bit better. So alongside what Councillor Williams will provide, I also provide the person, the kind of senior leader that heads over Hackney Works is Emma Pillin, but actually I'll provide you with details for Caroline. So Caroline kind of looks after the 3 hubs, and she's more ears to the ground, and so she can action some of the stuff that you're talking about.
I know Caroline, so I'll drop her a line, but thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Great, thanks both. Molly?
Hi, really great presentation. I think maybe I'm going to preempt my presentation later, but obviously it'd be really interesting from the employer side, who's in charge of that employment brokerage, and And is there any opportunity both with the VCS and some of our corporate partners to build a relationship with Hackney Works?
Yeah, all definitely opportunity to build relationship. My colleague Anish heads up the employee engagement, but if in the first instance, I can provide his details, but also you can direct that through to me or any one of us within the team will get that to the employment engagement team. But that's one of the things that we're really looking to do, is build closer relationships with our local employers. And so, you know, any avenue we can do that, any introductions that can be made, we gratefully receive those.
Amazing.
Great, thanks, Molly. I had a question around your sort of referral pathways, and do you track sort of how the residents found out about the service? Is it usually sort of just they've individually seen it on the council website, or do you get a lot of referrals from sort of voluntary sector partners, GP surgeries, etc., sort of where are your strongest links, I suppose, across the system?
So with regards to Hackney Works, they do track that. I think, as Councillor Williams mentioned, Hackney Works has, and the whole of employment skills, but Hackney Works specifically, the team, sit on a number of different, are part of a number of different groups. So we sit within the voluntary sector. There's a 16+ group that a regular meeting that Caroline is a part of. There's a host of different things, and even cross-borough things that Hackney Works tap into. I'd say that with regards to referral partners, it's probably from the voluntary sector. We actually have good links with the voluntary sector, so it would be majority of referrals would come from there. But with regards to the range, it's actually quite wide. So it's a word of mouth. It's people that have been supported in the past, and they tell their children, or they tell friends and colleagues, and then equally as well, it's other kind of organisations that we work with, like Circle Collective, Ingeus, Prospects, all of those kind of organisations tap in and referring, as well as educational institutions like New City College. So it's a range, but I think the biggest, if I'm thinking about consistent flow, would be through our voluntary partners.
Great. Oh, that's really good to hear. Thanks, John. Anyone else have any other questions for John before we move on to our next presentation? No? Okay, well, thanks so much for coming along, John. That was a really great presentation, and yeah, looking forward to promoting all of that stuff in the newsletter as well.
No worries, thank you. And thank you, Councillor Williams, for having my back and having all those links ready. So thank you all. Great.
Cheers, John. We are going to move across to Sarah, who is from the same service as John, and is going to talk about employment opportunities, I believe, for people who've got sort of physical or mental health issues. So yeah, off you go, Sarah. Thanks for coming along.
Hi, is it all right if I share a presentation? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Always hate this part. Okay. Okay, yeah, just to sort of follow on then from so let me just present. Oh my gosh, I've completely forgotten how to make it a slideshow.
You go across to the right, top right hand corner, slideshow, I think does the trick.
Start from the beginning. There we go. Thank you so much. I just suddenly forgot how to do that. Yeah, so just to follow on from John, we're part of a new part. Well, it's not, I keep saying it's new, it's not actually that new anymore because we started in January, but it's a part of the service that, as you mentioned, supports people who identify as having, or Hackney residents who identify as having physical or mental health conditions. The reason it's identified as is because I think especially within primary care services, it can be tricky to kind of get a diagnosis, that sometimes they change. And to be honest, we're looking at supporting people who feel that their conditions, whether they're diagnosed or not, are going to impact their ability to find or sustain employment. So it's IPSPC, which is not that catchy. But essentially what that means is individual placement and support in primary care. So the way it differs a little bit from Hackney Works, that's kind of covering all of Hackney's residents in finding and sustaining employment. IPS is a type of employment support that as a model that we use. This is a pilot because it's generally, and that's what my background is in, been used within secondary mental health services. So that's more the severe and enduring end of the spectrum in terms of mental health conditions. I'm just going to, of course, it's a little interactive bit, but I might just skip over that for the purposes of time and just kind of talk a little bit more in terms of what IPS, what that kind of actually looks like. The main element to it is it's looking for competitive or paid employment. Again, we're looking to support Hackney residents who identify as having mental or physical health conditions. And one of the other elements to it is we get all our referrals from, well, people, all our referrals come from different networks, although people can self-refer, but they'll be engaged within primary care settings. There is a separate service within the NHS, which is where I actually came from, that supports Hackney residents who are in secondary mental health services, who are struggling with or suffering with more severe enduring mental health conditions. Okay, and then this is a little bit more in regards to the eligibility. There is a service as well that works within Turning Point, where anyone who's accessing that drugs and alcohol service, there's a separate team there who they can be referred to. So as you can see here, we're very much focused around people who are engaged within primary care, 18 plus, and a Hackney resident. Okay. Here's a little bit more in relation to, or thinking about what IPS or individualized placement and support involves. And as I mentioned, it's competitive employment. It's looking at finding people paid roles. It's very individualized to the client. It kind of looking at kind of only jobs and roles or things that our clients are interested in. And I guess another part to the service is we do something called employer engagement, where we're looking at employers who perhaps have signed up to the Disability Confidence Scheme or kind of have pledged to be supportive of clients who do identify as having mental or physical health conditions. We offer the ongoing support within work as well. So if a client finds a role, or we support them in that, the support doesn't just end there, because quite often that's where a lot of people need the most support, just to kind of settling in and then figuring out whether they require any reasonable adjustments, how to liaise with the employer. And we also work with clients who are already in work, but perhaps they're struggling to retain or sustain that employment for lots of different reasons, but usually something around their mental or physical health, and they're struggling to kind of communicate with their employer or figure out how to make sure that they keep that role. We offer basic benefits advice as well. We have quite a close relationship with the DSAs, the Disability Support Advisors within Hackney Job Centre, to provide kind of more specific advice that we can refer our clients to as well. But we know sort of bits and pieces in relation to that to provide some advice as well. This, I suppose, is looking at the kind of support that we might provide for someone that was in work. So we're looking, as I mentioned, something referred to reasonable adjustments. So, for example, I actually was just supporting a client earlier in making sure that we get those questions usually about a week in advance before the interview, just to give them that extra time to kind of consider their answers and give them a fair opportunity to perform as well as they know they can within the interview. Quite a lot of the time, these reasonable adjustments are, well, obviously that's kind of the name, they are considered reasonable and you know, very easily kind of able to be supported by the employer. So there's a couple of ones listed there, as in regular breaks, maybe perhaps starting slightly later. Sometimes it kind of comes up within flexible working anyway, but we support our clients with anything that's going to help them sustain their employment when they're in work. And then, yeah, as I suppose we're looking at, we often help clients who are perhaps at risk of losing their role, perhaps have gone through a period of their life or bound to do diagnosis or are struggling with different elements of their recovery, whether it's a mental or physical health condition, we can support perhaps a phased return to work, liaise with the employer directly, or support or provide advice in the background, whatever kind of suits our client best in that particular situation. And yeah, as I mentioned before, this kind of returning to work, phased return, will liaise with whatever's kind of appropriate, whether we meet with HR and the client, or the client kind of comes to us for advice and attends the meeting themselves. It's very much tailored to what support that they would like, and we can provide that advice. Just to see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, so this kind of goes into the benefits of this type of employment support. Yeah, it's just, I suppose it's been really interesting having come from using this model within a secondary care setting, how it's kind of transitioned over into primary care. And it's, yeah, been really interesting to see how the model has worked really well within the primary care networks. And yeah, it's been really nice to see how the principles have still applied with people who maybe are suffering from less severe mental health conditions. Here we go. So yeah, we've been running, as I say, since January, and we kind of really got up and running, or started to take on cases in March of this year, and so we've actually had a few success stories at this point, and this is a nice little quotation from a client who was returning to work after an accident with his physical in relation to his physical health. So yeah, that's a nice little quotation about our service and about a client that we've worked with. And then similarly, a little shout out, this isn't me, this is my colleague Katie, so it's a little shout out to her in relation to her work with Rebecca, who she has supported and continues to via, as you can see there from that quotation, communicating with her manager and kind of having a good relationship, and being able to put in place bits and pieces and reasonable adjustments that support Rebecca in her role. I think that's probably okay. Yeah. I'm gonna stop sharing. There we go. I think that's probably everything in relation to the PowerPoint, so I'll stop sharing there. And yeah, I suppose I want to open up if anyone had any questions about the service in terms of the referral process. I'll quickly kind of look at that first, because I'd imagine that's probably going to be the first question. There's a link which I will just put in the chat, which is similarly to Hackney Works. People can either self-refer or be referred by a primary care network. As I say, we take both. It's the same form for Hackney Works, but the way that we identify, and then the way that they come in, they're identified by or sort of like triaged, and they'll come to us if they identify as having a physical or mental health condition. So I can put that link in the chat for the self-referral. If anyone had any residents in mind. Okay, so yes, does anyone have any questions in relation to anything I've just talked about?
I had a question around, you might have already covered this, sorry, but in terms of like the classification of how does someone become sort of eligible for this particular pathway? How they sort of, is there like a strict criteria that's set out in policy, or is it kind of self-identification?
It's self-identification because previously, and as I say, in my previous role when it was within secondary care, they needed to be under certain mental health teams, which obviously was limiting in terms of how many people we were able to support. So because it's a pilot, it's still kind of, the model is still being kind of chopped and changed in relation to what people are considering as eligibility. For our purposes, it's anyone who identifies as having a physical mental health condition, which is obviously a huge range, and sort of encapsulates, but you know, quite a large amount of Hackney residents, which is fantastic. So we're able to support more people than we would have done. So yeah, as I say, it's very much self-identifying, and yeah, as opposed to any other eligibility.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is it sort of promoted? So this is via primary care then. So is that how it's promoted to residents and people who might be able to receive the support?
Yeah, so we've embedded ourselves within various primary care networks across Hackney, and we receive referrals from a huge range actually. A few of us had come from the NHS, so kind of understood how the mental health teams within the primary care networks, how best to kind of reach residents who are perhaps struggling. So we've got links with GPs, so we get referrals through that, and we're obviously tracking quite a lot of this data, bits and pieces, because it's a pilot, so there's a lot of valuation that's going to be coming from that. But yeah, I was about to say primarily, but that's probably a bit on the nose, but basically we've been kind of working to get a lot of our referrals from clinicians within those networks, because sometimes it's useful to have a clinician's input in someone's referral as well. So we've got a little bit of background around that individual. Someone else that's working with them in a clinical way is quite helpful, because obviously we're a non-clinical service and we're very employment based, so it's good to have someone to refer to if we have any concerns as well in terms of their well-being.
And do people have to go via those routes to get referred in, or like,
no, they can also self-refer.
Yeah.
Which is again, we want to make the service as accessible as possible, and as I say, it's the same link for Hackney Works, but it's very quickly kind of made. When it's sort of triage in terms of when a referral comes in, it's very quickly decided as to who within the Hackney Works teams that client will be going to. But we've had quite a few self-referrals, which has also been really good, because obviously it makes it just a lot more accessible than going to your GP or whatever.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Does anyone else have any other questions? Charlie?
I'm interested in what your links are like with kind of services looking at poverty reduction in the borough. I asked that because our sense is, with speaking to the voluntary sector, is that organisations like food banks are speaking about mental health as one of their primary concerns when residents are talking to them. So I think it could be a really key resource for those organisations to help move someone forward from like crisis point into kind of employment. So I just wondered what those links are like, and if they're not great, how can we help you facilitate some more? Just interested in what that looks like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really interesting question in terms of what kind of links we have. As I say, I think it's a little bit tricky sometimes in relation to poverty reduction, because it's got to be coming from whether the clients would like to enter employment. We're not a service that's there telling people that they need to get back into work or anything, and sometimes people have that sort of, they feel that that's what we're sort of saying, and it's like, no, it's about making work be part of your recovery and being part of your feeling, recovering from perhaps a period of mental or physical ill health. I actually do have quite a few links because of my previous work within the NHS with the food bank, for example. A couple of me and my colleagues are able to issue food bank vouchers, and I'm also linked in with the Household Support Fund, which I think is your bag as well, right? Or is it John's? I'm sorry, I'm still like
with our team do some of the work around HSF, so yeah.
Stunning. Yes, so I think it's really important to have like those types of connections, because clients come to us, as I say, from all sorts of places, and often may need that little bit of extra help as well as wanting to get back to work. So I have links in with them, and as I say, we were able to issue food bank vouchers, and we're working at the moment, and you guys know about this as well, with Susan, who's from the NHS, to put on that cost of living event, which is next week, which is in one of our hubs. So again, I think it's important to, we're a voluntary service in that people don't need to engage with us as part of, it's not going to have any impact on their benefits, or we're not there to tell people they need to get back to work. It's if it's something that they would like to think about as part of their journey, really. Does that answer your question? I'm not 100%.
It does. It's really interesting to kind of hear your views on that intersection and to kind of think about how they connect. So thank you.
Thanks, Charlie and Sarah. Councillor Williams?
I was just wanted to ask which event, Sarah.
Oh.
You said event at a hub. I know that there's an open day and Taylor. I don't know if that's the one that you're referring to, or if this is an event in one of the opportunity hubs, because I know that you're at the Shoreditch hub.
Yes, so this is actually, well, I mean, it's in partnership with the council, but it is very much being mainly, I'll say the brainchild, but mainly fronted by East London Foundation Trust. Cost of living, I think lead, I think is her role, and it'll be next week. I'm more than happy to share the details about it at the, you're right, at the Hoxton hub in Shoreditch, where there'll be lots of kind of advice and bits and pieces around it. I'm there to provide food bank vouchers and the household support fund, and obviously we'll have our information, but as I say, you know, we want to make sure that people are there to get the right support and not feeling that they need to go back to work as that being kind of the answer, if that makes sense. But yeah, no, I'm more than happy to let you know more about it if you'd like me to send you an email with the information.
I'll put some details in the chat as well, but Susan presented about this meeting, this event at the last poverty reduction meeting as well. And I can forward you the flyer as well, Carol, Councillor Williams.
Great, thanks all. Neil.
Hi, Sarah. Someone heard in you with loads of bits, but it's just a curiosity question. So you've got people coming to you looking for work. You're dealing with those who are self-declaring any mental health or physical sort of ailments they're recovering from. Do you as part of that? Well, the world I work, I run the revenue service, so we are probably the cause of some mental health issues for some residents in terms of trying to collect money from them. I'm just wondering, would there be any point in us having a conversation with you to give you literature or anything that would help those residents on that journey, or am I pushing at the wrong door there, really?
No, oh no, sorry, that's not it. I'm struggling to hear you. Totally, sorry. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but also, yeah, I couldn't really hear that. I'm so sorry.
So my department collects money from council taxpayers, and obviously that can be a big mental health strain for them.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, not wishing to sort of push this into your territory, but if you're helping them look for work, are you addressing the causes of the mental health issues, or is that a secondary issue someone else deals with?
I see what you mean. Yes, of course. Yeah, it's very tricky, isn't it? Because quite a lot of the time people have got like lots of elements of their life that they may be struggling with. Well, because we kind of emphasize that we're a non-clinical service, we're not counsellors, we're not therapists. What's kind of helpful, I suppose, is that we're able, and as I say, a few of us are from the NHS and know of the pathways into getting clinical support within Hackney for mental health specifically. It's a tricky one because obviously we want to be there to listen to what's going on with someone. We do have a really good network of signposting in terms of lots of bits and pieces that people may be struggling with. And as actually I think I mentioned, it's quite good to have had the referral come from a clinician within the NHS. So if we have that sort of relationship, we have someone that we can refer them to directly, and it's much easier than just telling them to sort of be, or referring them to a service if they have someone that they know. But that's not to say that we can't help them in, like, as I say, a couple of myself and my colleague are both able to give out feedback vouchers and things like that. So we do make sure that with bits and pieces that we can support our clients alongside employment support that we do, but we're very clear on for clinical support and things around their mental health or physical health that we're not necessarily able to provide specialist support in that way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I was just thinking, it's that signposting bit I was keen on. And if you've got those links, that's great, because obviously we're very unless a resident tells us they're struggling in my world, we're not some all-seeing oracle. We don't know. So it just makes sure the signposting is there, that they will get the appropriate help from our side as well. So, but if that's in place, that's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I suppose it comes up for us because they've been referred to us on the basis of identify as having a physical or mental health condition. So it sort of crops up within our initial assessment generally.
Thanks, Neil. And Sarah, does anyone else have any other questions for Sarah before we move on? No? Oh, Jermaine, welcome, and yeah, please come in.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is my first meeting, I think, that I've been able to attend. Sarah, thanks so much for sharing that. It's really insightful, partly because I'm the new chief executive of Rising Tide. We're a music charity in Hackney Central, and the young people that come into our building, although they don't say they are very hungry. There's a lot of food deprivation. The young people are eating out our Costco orders. I'm having to make Costco orders every other week. It's breaking my heart. So I wondered, and I can only do so much in terms of CV support, personal statements, access to college applications. Do you provide a service where you're able to visit centres and spaces to speak with young people, or is everything online?
Oh no, really good question, thank you. No, not at all. We do a lot of outreach. A lot of our work, well, I mean, it would make sense, is within the community. So we're obviously based at those two hubs now, and the Hackney Service Centre, but obviously I totally appreciate, especially when it comes to younger people, going to them is quite often the way to engage, right? So yeah, we've been more than happy. We've sort of come down. I've worked with Hackney Quest. I don't know if you're aware of them before. Yeah, they're great. And actually we worked together on a job fair for young people specifically earlier this week, which was great. And if there is a space and a need for us to come down and talk about our service, one thing I will say is we're over 18. Whereas Hackney Works as a larger organisation, not a large organisation, the more general kind of job support is for 16 plus, but our specific service is for over 18s. So that's something to keep in mind. But you know, by all means, it's if you feel that's going to be really helpful to your young people in terms of how to access our service, or if they have any questions in relation to employment, we're more than happy to come out and speak to them. Should I put my email in the chat? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Sorry, It's Sarah Smith, which is a ridiculous name. I am aware of that. There you go.
Amazing. Thanks, Sarah and Jermaine. And yeah, thanks for coming along, Jermaine. Good to see you. Councillor Williams, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, I was just going to come back on the question that Jermaine asked. Jermaine, can I take that away as well and speak to officers to see what we can do more broadly and generally around employment, access to training, including all the information, but to get somebody to you rather than... This is one of the things that we've always discussed with officers. You know, it's much better to go to young people rather than expecting them to come to us. It's not always going to work that way around, so let's see if we can organize something and come to you with all the sign-up material, help and information and advice right there on hand for you.
That's me, Don.
I'll drop you an email.
Thanks very much.
Brilliant.
Yeah, because we've had sexual health visitors come in, and we realize that young people actually don't like going to the clinic. So when we do have a set up makeshift clinic here, they're engaging with it. We're playing games around sexual health. They're learning and developing their knowledge about that. And I wanted to ask a question about creative careers. Is it just more general? Sorry, I know I'm holding the microphone. Is it more general?
No, it's fine.
Or can we? Because a lot of our young people want to go into the creative industries. Obviously, we're a music charity. And are you able to provide that bespoke sort of tailoring around employment and potential links to creative industry, companies in the creative industry? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very individualized in relation to what the client would like. I found out about loads of industries and jobs that I wasn't even aware of. But yeah, no, I mean, the creative industry is the one that I think is least accessible for young people. That's just kind of my feeling, having worked around in this sector for a while, because it is quite well, there's a lot of nepotism and there's a lot about who you know, and actually, yeah, it's a really tricky kind of sector to navigate as a young person. So yeah, we do make sure that we kind of tailor what the job is that that person is looking for, and if that is creative, which is a lot of our clients, then that's something we would explore. Sorry, I missed what you said the name of your organization is. It
Yeah, we're a charity. We're literally opposite the town hall. We're part of the Picture House building. We're called Rise and Tide. Been here for 21 years.
Oh,
but
cool.
I'm the chief exec.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking of Key Changes. That's a different organization though, I think, isn't it?
Very different. Very different.
Sorry. But yeah, so the answer is yeah, we do. We support with sort of finding tailored opportunities for within the creative sector.
Brilliant, thank you. And thanks for your comment in the chat as well, Charlie. Immediate theatre. And yeah, totally agree on sort of the point you made, Council Williams, around going to where people are. And yeah, Charlie's sort of done some work on that whole co-location point as well in our team. So yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Molly's asked for your email address, Jermaine, if you want to. I can either link you guys up or obviously you can put it in the chat if you like. Anyone else does anyone else have any questions for Sarah before we move on to Molly's presentation? No? Okay. Thanks so much, Sarah. That was absolutely fantastic, and thanks everyone for the questions as well. Molly's here from Groundwork. Yeah, to talk about some corporate volunteering work that they're doing. So yeah, please take it away.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much for having me, and it's really great to be here. I've got 15 minutes, is that right?
Yeah, I mean the meeting's in the calendar for until 5:30, so yeah, you can fill the space as you wish, really.
Amazing, thank you. Oh, sorry. Yeah, here we are. It's my presentation. Dismiss slideshow. There we are. Fantastic. Fantastic. So I can't see anyone now. So if anyone, I'll have questions at the end. But if anyone has like a clarifying question, please jump in as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. I'm talking about our corporate partnerships program, which includes corporate volunteering at Groundwork London. So I'll just start by introducing us at Groundwork. So I work as part of the community team. I'm the community program manager for East London. Groundwork does. It would take a whole 15 minutes to explain all the different things Groundwork does, but we're a community and environmental charity and we operate across London. But the community team specifically is really about that kind of social and community and the environment and bringing them together. And always, how can we reduce our environmental impact? How can we adapt to and prepare for climate change and combat climate change, but also bringing, working alongside our community, co-creating solutions and bringing the joy of the environment and nature to communities in all sorts of different ways. And so I sometimes sort of say that we can sort of scale up the environment depending on the group. Sometimes it's about nature appreciation, and sometimes it's much more kind of climate and sustainability focused. So we're not a fully fledged, out and proud, very strongly environmental organisation. Sometimes it's more under the surface. And we're more social focused. And we've been working in Hackney for over 30 years, and I'm from our office in Lower Clapton Road. And so my job has all sorts of different areas, and I'm always keen to if you want to get in touch specifically, if it's anything up to do with gardening, greening the environment, please feel free to get in touch. I'll put my email in the chat. But today I'm here specifically to talk about corporate volunteering and corporate partnerships. So we have a corporate partnerships team here who arrange, broker and facilitate corporate employee volunteering days. So that is just a group of a team normally who'll come out and do a day at a site. So they match them to some groundwork projects, but also other projects in different communities, green spaces, community groups, schools, and they're kind of spaces where they need help. And I'll talk about specifically where our areas of expertise are. And the Groundwork team can go out there and they can plan and facilitate a day. You can see here some people having a great time. Arranging and facilitating these days are free for the community sites and schools and green spaces. And we can have a small, I'm going to emphasize small because of everything's gone up in cost, so that's something, a real steer that I've got, is to emphasize small budget for materials. So if you're working with a group, I don't think this is maybe anyone here, but if you know of an organizational group where they do not have a budget, we can support. It works much more smoothly, and more can be done if there is a budget for materials, or if there are materials. So for example, if you've taken a big donation of wood that you think, oh, it would be really great if we could turn this into some planters, for example, we're the people that can maybe make that happen. And our aim is to create and improve public parks, community gardens, housing estates and nature reserves for everyone to benefit from. And that includes community members who would like to be involved. And the corporate groups that we work with are always really keen to be sort of meet and connect with community groups. And that's always really exciting. And we project manage everything from start to finish. We bring tools and equipment, manage health and safety, and are fully insured. So we kind of carry all of that risk as well. And we are very experienced and get amazing feedback. And we have a lot of repeat clients. So as well as obviously Groundwork London getting great kind of feedback, that leads on to the site that we're visiting. You suddenly get a group of people who feel really positive. They've had an amazing day, not doing their normal job at a corporate office, but go out and feel like they've done something really exciting and amazing. And there's always a chance, we really love this, if as you as a site or an organization or a group can come out and say, this is what we do, this is what we've done. You know, we're X, Y, and Z. Here's ways you can support maybe a little bit more, maybe other volunteering opportunities you have. So we traditionally do the kind of event days. We love it if we can have a repeat day. So maybe different organizations or different team in an organization can come back, because from our point of view, you know, we love that journey. We also love, you know, saving on the kind of prep time. So we know where we're going, and that might be if you've got something that's going to take a longer period of time, we can come over every week and make a difference. But we're also keen, as well as these event days, of doing something a little different, of doing things around skills, you know, around sort of CV days with, you know, groups of young people or people looking for work. Sort of Dragon's Den days, maybe where people pitch ideas and corporate groups work as dragons in a den. And other kind of slightly different ideas. If you kind of think, you know, we'd really like to work with some corporate groups, but we don't have that capacity or time to do outreach, we are constantly hearing from them, and we've got a really good reputation and really good at bridging those gaps and building that relationship. So if you've got something that's a little different, definitely get in touch. And yeah, I think it would be something I'm really excited about with presenting this group, is I know everyone here is really well networked. So I'm going to post in our prospectus, which is really outlines all this key information. And so if you kind of come across a group that needs something, I feel like corporate, in the world of the charity sector as we know it at the moment, in the voluntary sector, it's so exciting when something comes off that doesn't have a lot of added baggage or cost or stress or funding. It's kind of just can feel like magic that the people are willing to do things, essentially. These are just some of the people that we've worked with. So some of them are household names, some of them aren't, obviously, but yeah, really big players in the game, and this is just a small proportion of the people that we've worked with as well. And we get new clients all the time, as well as lots of repeat clients. So the bigger they are, the more we've worked with them. So we've worked with things like Diageo and the HS2 team a lot, PwC, Capgemini, and places like that. So what we can do. So this is our kind of bread and butter. Firstly, general gardening, maintenance and outdoor tasks, boosting biodiversity by building safe havens for wildlife, building, repairing and installing wooden infrastructure for gardens and outdoor spaces, and upcycling, repairing and building furniture. So these are kind of the bread and butter things we can do, but our team are really skilled, and if there's something a little bit unusual, definitely get in touch. We don't do stuff that's not, you know, like painting a wall And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's a little bit more engaged. It's a bit more of a day than that level. So kind of like we can think quite creatively and feel like we're offering a real range, because if we've got 20 to 30 people, it's nice to give them a big range of activities. And here's some sort of thoughts generally on making it a success. So as I said before, well, one thing just to say is we are based in Hackney, and we are really keen to connect to more organisations in Hackney. So that's always, I think, a good thing to know, is when there's a lot of enthusiasm. From our side, there is a lot of enthusiasm to connect. And that's partly because we love the borough and we love the voluntary and community sector that make it so great, but also it's just less driving and less sitting in traffic. So that's partly where that is. So materials, we do have a small budget for materials, but we can do a lot more if, as we said, the organisation have some materials or a small budget to work with. Sometimes we have a really great idea, but obviously the groups we're working with, they kind of expect, sometimes the appeal is it's not their usual, you know, beautiful posh corporate offices, but they do need somewhere to go to the loo, they need toilets. They often need a space to go in and get warm, even if they're outdoors in the cold, and a space to have tea and coffee and eat lunch. So we do have things like gazebos. I think trying to rent toilets and portaloos and stuff is a bit of a nightmare. So if you're kind of thinking in those basic logistics, where is there a space that they can go to the loo nearby and things like that? I know that's maybe not the most glamorous thing to be talking about, but something good to be thinking about. A really great story to tell, and to like, the more that you can kind of really enthuse about a lovely narrative, which might feel a bit like at the end of a busy day, a bit tiring, but what is the massive difference that this community site, that you know, this community garden is going to make, and what amazing things can you do, which is always that thing in the VCS, that you have to tell a great story, because that story that you tell us is a story we're going to tell corporate clients, because we might have a few different options we're trying to promote them. So the one that says, you know what, this sensory garden is going to mean a lot for these young people with special educational needs and disabilities, or coming along and doing a CV day with our young people, you know, a lot of them are dealing with X, Y, and Z struggle, for example. Community and participant voices, really, really valuable to have them. We've had some experiences where some people have had negative views about what's happening. That might be like, it's a really big scale project, a really big design project, and there are sometimes positive and negative views, and that's sort of inevitable. That does not help us when, you know, I'm being very, very frank. It's really great to have a really positive story to tell and a really positive voice there, but not so, you know, that's just maybe something to raise. And keep us updated with what happens after the event, yeah, which is a really great thing to tell us later on. And the other thing is we really welcome, I think I mentioned earlier, longer term relationships. So lots of sites, you know, so lots of visits if that's possible, as well as a one-off visit. So if you're thinking about really big plans for 2025, or making some big changes, then that's maybe something to get on board with us early and have a conversation. Because we can, you know, provide that free labour, which can make a really big difference very, very quickly. And that can also be included as support in kind in fundraising applications. And one thing I suppose to strike as a note of just, you know, setting expectations is corporate groups, corporate businesses work at a very different time scale, and they've got very different stakeholders to charities, community groups, community sites, community gardens, parks and green spaces. And that's partly our job to navigate them, but there often does require a bit of flexibility and a bit of accepting that, you know, so like sometimes in our projects we're like, oh, it'd be really great if we had corporate group to come here, and then the corporate partnerships or team will say, well, we've had a group that they're not going to do that, but this is their community volunteering day, so that's the only day you can get. And that is one of the challenges, but that's just to set the kind of the scene for you, that the more flexible you can be, the easier it is for us to match us up. But then we do understand that you may well say, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. So kind of full honesty is great. And if certain times and days don't work, that's fine. But it's a useful thing maybe for you to know that the maximum flexibility means we can match them, match you as quickly as possible and find a great place, a great group to work with you. And these are some examples of sites. So you can see that this is like a longer term project, the mobile garden. So you can see that before, just looks like a bit of waste ground, and then the after. And if you ever are in Hackney Wick, you can go to the mobile garden, and if it's open, it's a really lovely space. Yeah, again, you'll see that beginning, and then again, a kind of at a primary school over a period of time. Obviously, at primary schools, they're normally in the holidays, those days. And there, yeah, again, you can see the difference that's been made. I think I'm running a little bit near my time, but some really great quotes. And yeah, I think it's a really fun thing because they're people having a great time on their day, volunteering day. So it really is a positive atmosphere and it can make a real difference. And these are the next steps. So get in touch with us. Send us some photos of the space or what your or your pitch for what you kind of like to be changed, and wait for a call. We'll have a chat, and then we might have a video call, and then we may do a site visit, and we'll kind of proceed from there. Yes, so I will stop sharing. Yeah, that's me. Is there any questions? Really happy to chat through if anyone's got any questions.
Charlie?
Do you have any links in with our resident participation team?
I've connected to, yes, in terms of like the gardens, the estate gardens. Yeah, I'm really excited to have a meeting early next week. We have previously done work, so that's something that's really great. Those kind of resident allotments and gardens. Yeah.
Emma?
Sorry?
Is that with Emma? That meeting sounds like it's the right person. I just wanted to check.
I'm really bad with names.
Don't worry, Molly. I'm sure it sounds like it's.
It is with Emma. It is with Emma.
Perfect.
Great. Fantastic.
I have another question. I guess it's. Is it strictly only for kind of communal spaces owned by organisations? Because I know when I was a housing officer, it used to be very difficult for residents with large overground gardens, and finding the right support was very difficult. It was basically only good gym if they didn't meet the threshold for support through statutory support. So is it strictly only those kind of spaces?
No, not at all in that way. And we could certainly, for example, do work with a council. I mean, where like doing individuals' gardens is, of course, there are like safeguarding considerations, and there may be some sensitivities around, like, would you like a big group of people who are on a fun day out to come to your garden? That's where I could see it being a challenge. If there was, like, say for example, a group of people, a group of places nearby where they wouldn't mind that, or if, for example, there's a garden that's very near a community space, so we could have access to the garden without having to go into someone's house, that would be really, really positive as well. But I think that that wouldn't be my first thought, but if an organisation or a team thought, what, we actually do think it would be okay in this environment, then we could certainly discuss that. Yeah.
That makes sense. Just like I said, it was something that used to come up when I worked in the front line a lot. But yeah, I get that it's not quite the right fit.
It's tricky.
Thanks, Charlie. Does anyone else have any other questions for Molly? No. Okay. Thank you so much for coming along, Molly. And yeah, I'll include those slides if that's all right in the newsletter.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Great. Well, that was the last of our presentations. We've got 15 minutes left. We usually just open up the floor, really just to give everyone an opportunity to promote any work they're doing, ask a question of anyone in the group. So if there's anything that you are doing in your service or your organisation you want to promote to the group, or you can obviously send me the info for the newsletter as well. Now's your chance. Otherwise, we can wrap up 15 minutes early. Okay. I was just going to, we've already discussed it, but I was just going to flag the cost of living event next week that Elfed are running, but we've already discussed that. But I'll put the info again in the newsletter for anyone who's missed it. But yeah, unless anyone else has got anything they want to share, we can draw the meeting to a close. All right, fantastic. Thanks everyone. Thanks for coming along, and for our presenters as well. And have a great evening. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.